All right, everybody. Spencer Hogan here, BDM with the Finance. I'm here with my friend Jessica Allen with Skidmore Sales. Jessica, how are you?
I'm doing great today. It's an awesome day. It is a little rainy out there, but I'm doing great.
It's rainy and we've needed the rain. I'll tell you
That's true.
this. Yeah, I'll tell you this. First ever technology event I ever went to was with the circuit. I was like a week into my job and it was a happy hour at Mad Tree. And I was making a bit of a career transition at that point. And so I was like fresh into tech, didn't know a whole lot. And I remember walking into that brewery and there was just the nicest people ever there. It was so full of life, community. Like honestly, it was just such a pleasant experience. Um, and you were one of the folks that spoke on the panel that day. And so a couple of years later, it's awesome to be interviewing you and start some kind of working relationship with you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, the Circuit is a great organization. I think it's unique to Cincinnati. I'm really passionate about it. I sit on the board and just do everything I can to support it. It's unique. I traveled a lot in my career, and a lot of cities don't have what we have here in Cincinnati. I think it's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, hey, tell me about your early life experiences, how your upbringing kind of shaped your perspective on leadership, problem solving. You could even go into your adolescence, early career. Like, tell me, like, I don't know, how are you, who you are today? What influenced you?
And that's a crazy question. I don't even know where to start. The funny thing to tell you is when I was in getting into college and thinking I wanted to do IT and thinking, I think computers are awesome. I had spent a lot of my childhood working with my mom. So on the weekends, I would go to the office with her and she would give me, take this highlighter and highlight any number that you see over $100. And so I would go through these green bar printouts and highlight things, or I would, file papers for her in these big filing cabinets. And what I didn't understand then that I did once I decided to go into IT was my mom was actually a CIO. My mom was one of the first CIOs that ever happened back in the 90s. And when people decided, hey, CIO might be a thing. And I didn't even know that until I decided that that was something that I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So my early childhood, I was watching her just work and work and work and work. So I would say that's the first thing I learned is work hard. And just, whatever she wanted me to do, whatever she needed me to do, I did it. Um,
Hmm.
my dad was in construction, so same thing. He came home dirty and tired, and he had worked really, really hard every single day. So I would say my first principle is work hard. But
Hmm.
on top of that, as far as leadership, I have been so lucky in my career, even from co-oping at Procter and Gamble out of NKU. The leaders that I have been exposed to have just been fantastic people who took the time to talk to me, who took the time to teach me. I remember so many of them. Stefan Forsville from Belgium, from Procter and Gamble, Eric Wilhelm. I mean, there's a list and list and list and list, and I can just keep going. So they all teach you these wonderful things, right? Stefan being like way at the beginning of my career taught me bring solutions, not problems. And that has stuck with me for so long, right? You don't just bring the problem and lay it on the table, you come up with a solution. But from then I was this naive girl from central Kentucky, middle class family that didn't really know much coming into Procter and Gamble. I remember I had a really southern accent back then. I've lost it over time. And so, they kind of thought I was silly. And I mean, I worked my way through that as this co-op that nobody understood. They were all like, oh, she's cute. Right. But that was it, like just pat me on the head and move on. So I think just working hard and learning from the people that are around you. The people say your network is what is important. It's not your network, it's being a sponge to the people around you and taking in all the leadership learning you can. And my goal is just to emulate those awesome people that I got to be exposed to.
I feel like I feel like we're a sum of all of the people that we've admired growing up and learned from, you know, like I feel like there's parts of who I am that are just indebted to folks that I
Yep.
got to serve under. And I totally resonate with the honor to have so many great leaders that you've worked under. I mean, I've had some great people in my life that I still talk to this day that mean the world to me. So um when you started in co-oping, was that in technology? Like was so you were that's
Yeah.
so early that's I'm trying to think about a girl with a southern accent being in tech. I can't
Yes.
It's so funny thinking about that. Gosh, good for you. Good for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it was a proctor in IT. I started at the mainframe help desk of all things. And the way
Wow.
that it worked at Procter is you had to work third shift, right? So you had to take your knocks and do this third shift. So I worked third shift at the mainframe help desk was where I started, and quickly moved around into different roles, working in event management and monitoring. I remember the first website project that I was on when web development was a new thing. Yes, I'm old. Um, but we were creating technology for people to get paged, people in IT to get a page on a pager that said, hey, the system is down. And so we created a website that they could go in and say, well, page me between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., but don't let it page me after 8 p.m. So it's just a little website for paging capabilities. I mean, it was
Was
super cool.
was that .NET? Were you developing that? What were you using
It
to
was in
develop that?
it was in Java. Um,
Of course it was in
gosh.
Java. Everything's in Java.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Java. It could have been C++. But gosh, that's such a long time ago. I'm not even totally remembering. But I mean, we were doing basic HTML. It was pretty basic stuff.
You're not, I wouldn't age yourself too much because you're a 90s kid, which is like the greatest era of culture, I think, in American history. Like you grew up in, gosh, I just spaced on his name. He's like one of my favorite directors from the late 80s. He did 16 Candles, John Hughes. John
Yeah,
Hughes,
I
yes.
think that's
Yeah.
right. I'm not a
That's
big
like that's
movies
like your
person.
generation. So
Hey,
that's
go Gen X. Go Gen X.
yeah. So gotcha. Well, hey, so you started talking a bit about your time at P&G early in your career as a project manager. Tell me about as how you kind of grew up in IT and moved into senior leadership roles, eventually now
Yeah.
as a CIO. What lessons did you learn along the way? Who did you sponge from? Like what else have you yeah, what kind of shaped your perspective on leadership?
Man. There's a recent way of looking at this, and a new book by Pat Lencioni and those folks that talk about smart, humble, hungry. And they say that a good leader has to have all three of those. And I am really hung up on that lately. It keeps coming back to my mind. And I think that's the best way to sum up what I learned is there's just amazing moments where you have to figure out, am I supposed to be smart, humble, or hungry in this moment? And you have to have all three. And for me, I was always hungry for a challenge. So when a new challenge came, I would jump at it. Um, and I knew when to use smart and when to use humble. Humility is an interesting thing because it makes you incredibly vulnerable. And so I think there's a lot of times in my career where I was humble enough to say, I don't know what I don't know, and ask the questions instead of trying to, make it up. But times when I knew to use smart, and I'll give you an example. When I was at Citigroup, I was an infrastructure project manager. I had gotten pulled into a software audit, huge software audit, Citigroup, right? So and I got pulled into the software audit, and my boss came to me and said, I need to create a team going forward to manage this operationally, not just for this project, but we want to start, taking care of software assets going forward. And I need to build a team. Do you want to run that team? And so I took the challenge and I was excited about it. But at the same time, he came to me and he said, well, we don't want to quite give you the title yet, right? So we're gonna make you we're gonna leave you a VP. By the way, as a bank, everybody's a VP. So he said, we're going to leave you as a vice president. And I said, no, I think I need to be an SVP to have the empowerment to take care of what I needed. And so that was really brave and smart in the moment versus being humble. And it worked. He actually went back and got me the SVP title. And I got to move forward with that. It was scary. And I really wanted the job. But, it's just, I think that's the thing is when are you smart, humble, and hungry? And you have to have the hunger. You have to have the desire. Otherwise, you're just not going to get there. And people don't want to work for someone, follow a leader who doesn't hungry, right? If you don't seem invested in it, then they won't be invested in it. So I think that's really important. So I've went step by step, just taking on the challenges, but trying to be humble when I needed to be humble, ask questions, and never think that I'm the smartest person.
That's really good. That's really good. And you're a very smart person. So I'll tell you, that's some great wisdom you just shared. So tell me now, you're CIO of Skidmore, family-owned business. How has your experience in technology and in consulting, how have those things, how's your experience in a family-owned business added a new perspective to you in your role? Because I can tell you, personal experience, family business is a different world. It is weirdly, there shouldn't be different rules because of HR, but there definitely is.
It's
So
definitely different. I consulted Spencer, so I've been in hundreds of companies, right? Probably, I don't know, that might be a slight exaggeration, but not too much. So I've been in so many different environments. Everyone is different. So let me just say that first and foremost. But my last job before this one was also a family-owned business with very, very different environment. So what I have learned, the way I want to answer that question is what I've learned about what's great about a Skidmore. What's great about Skidmore is Doug Skidmore does not come in every day with, edicts or this is what we should do or excite. I want to say not excited, but like some sort of noise around something. He's very level. He's very measured. He's very consistent. And I think that's what's interesting about a family-owned business is that head of the family, if you will, really sets the tone of the environment. And in my prior family-owned business, the same thing happened. There was a very different owner who set a very different tone. When I've been in public companies, Citigroup, Procter and Gamble, HP, Schneider Electric, you don't have that one person that's setting the tone. In a family-owned business, that one person, maybe two or three, the prior company that I was at, the father and the son were significant. So there were two people, but these single individuals that have that last name, right, set the tone of the environment. And I think that's what's so interesting is to see that this one person, this one entity has the ability to affect so many others. And I really enjoy it in this one because Doug Skidmore sets such a great tone for the environment. It's we're good people and we're going to be good people and we're going to do the right thing. So that's first and foremost. And then he puts his employees first, which is awesome. So it's just in a public company that doesn't happen. You don't get this pervasive tone that is set by a human. And I think that's super awesome. But
what's
sorry, I just want to add,
what's
yeah.
that's okay. What's one of the things that you guys do to put people first? How does that manifest itself in your culture?
I love to tell the story that in the first couple months, let's see, I started the company January 1st. When Super Bowl, the Super Bowl is usually in February. I'm not a big football person, but I came to the leadership meeting on a Monday morning and we were talking about if we should give the employees the day off for the Super Bowl. And I mean, I literally looked around the room and was like, this is what we talk about in the leadership meetings. I mean, so we often talk about we have an employee advisory board and we talk about what feedback they give and we sit and we think it through. So it's just gosh, I can't come up at the A example because it's just literally the culture that everything is about the employees. Everything, we're going to keep the business going and we're a customer focused company, But I mean, just the focus is the employees. We do so much to try to make sure. Another thing that we do that I think is super cool, if we hit a record, we spin a wheel. So there's a wheel. It looks much like the Wheel of Fortune wheel. I hope I'm allowed to tell you guys this, but anyway, it looks much like the Wheel of Fortune wheel, and we spin it. And based on where it lands, the employees will get some sort of incentive that month. It's typically a cash incentive, or they'll get, I think there's a PTO day on there. So there's a couple of different things on the wheel, but every time we meet a record in a month, we spin the wheel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I've heard about the wheel. I've heard
Yeah,
about it.
it's pretty cool.
And they that's like one of the first things they talk about is that wheel.
Yeah. Yes, it's when I got here, I was like, this is so cool. And there's 4 companies in the enterprise. All 4 companies have a wheel.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's talk about a bit about your leadership at Skidmore. So you have built a remarkably efficient team at technology team at Skidmore. You are lean and mean, I think is a pretty fair way to say it. You guys get a ton done. Achieving impressive results with the lean structure. What strategies have you found most effective in driving success with limited resources? And what's some advice you would give to other IT leaders that are facing similar constraints, which is like all of them?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been, Spencer, I'll take a second since you gave it to me to brag on this team. We have a board meeting. I do a newsletter. These different occasions happen every other week or so where I get to talk about this team. And every time I say to them, you're amazing. And I say, I really mean it. So anyway, there's such a great team, and I think that's the key is good people who want to work hard. I can't tell you how awesome this team is, and finding folks and helping them figure out which position fits them best. We use something called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it talks about seats, right?
We're an EOS company. So
Great.
We speak the
So
same
EOS
language.
talks about seats, right? So helping an individual figure out what's the right seat for them. And that's hard in a small environment because everybody in this team wears a lot of hats, right? EOS would call them accountabilities. They carry a lot of different accountabilities. And so working with the team when I got here to say, because all of them had way too many accountabilities. So it was very clear we needed to expand the team, but figuring out how would each person relate into that? So I have one team member, Dawn Eichenhorst, who's fantastic. And Dawn had so many hats. Just to pick an example, she was our help desk. She was our security analyst. She was a chief of staff, if you will, for the CIO, helping with things. She was doing so many different things. And so we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what's Dawn's right seat moving forward. And so just helping her figure that out. And it's been everybody on the team just figuring out what do we want to be. We also brought in Agile, which gave us a really good process framework. We're roughly safe for a tiny company or a tiny team. We have one Agile team, but they are using SAFe in a creative way. And that has really helped us, I think, as well. So just bringing in the right team, bringing in the right people, and then allowing people to figure out where they fit, giving time for that. I think we were flexible about it. Using Dawn again as an example, was like, hey, you got a year, you can figure it out. You don't have to figure it out in a week or a month. We'll figure it out and we'll iterate as we go. So with a small team with lots of different hats, you have to figure that out and you have to constantly be tweaking it a little bit here and there. So I think that's what we've been successful at. I see my team just excelling as they figure out those hats that they fit the best.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's a couple different companies that we're closely engaged with where their business is enormous and their shop is less than 10 people. And I'm always fascinated by how the tech stack lines up for all their team members. And something I have observed, at least in the clients I'm thinking of, it's different for every business, is the significant amount of attention that's put on just like unicorn technologists, the people that are like, they know a lot of different things about a lot of different areas, and they bring a lot to the table. And I just have observed, and at least in my career too, I think the most valuable people in technology are people that know a lot of things about a lot of different areas. It could speak the language of business people in a sense, right? Like I'm a sales guy, so I come more from the other side of the fence where I speak language of the business and I have to learn how to speak technology. But the folks that I think bring the most value in our clients specifically are people that know how to handle lots of different projects and see how they all connect to the business.
Yeah, that's absolutely. It's about empathy, right? The best people, the best individuals in an IT team, I believe, we have to have empathy for the customer. Which is an internal customer. And we have to put ourselves in their shoes. And that's what we've been building as an organization. Skidmore is a customer focused company. Customer service is at the utmost for us. And so I've worked to instill that in the IT team as well. And we all hold each other accountable for that. I'll use the example of change management. We have our CAB, our change advisory board. Everyone on the team comes. We're a small team, so we can do that. But then we're able to give each other feedback and make sure we're thinking about all the different things that might affect our users. So empathy is the key point that I would kind of sum up to what you're saying. Absolutely.
That's great. Tell me, what's a technology topic that you love to nerd out about? I know you're CIO now, and I know you're not highly technical in the weeds anymore, but there's got to be something, and the answer cannot be AI. It's got to be something. It can be data, something in data,
Yeah.
but it can't just be like, oh, ChatGPT is cool, you know?
Well, the answer, you're not going to like my answer then, because it's everything. I just love to geek out. And you know what, I think my team would tell you they struggle with that, because they'll cut, oh, look at this, right? I'll give an example. We were building a VDI environment and we got it ready, and Phil Toombs on my team was like, oh, let me show you the VDI environment is ready. And I immediately, oh, can it do this? Well, what about this? And what about that? And then, they'll go and say, oh, Jessica said she wants this. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't mean to say I wanted something. I just was geeking out. So I'm really bad about that. I'm really bad about wanting to geek out on just about every technology topic. I love that we're building Power BI and dashboards, and I love that.
That's so fun. That's
I
like the
love to
most
see
fun
what we're
thing in
doing.
technology.
Yeah, I love to see what we're doing. Chandler on our team just built this race chart that was super cool. So yeah, the answer, Spencer, is I love it all. I just love geeking out.
I specifically, as I have learned a lot about how data works, Power BI, Snowflake, Databricks, developing data lakes is such a fascinating thing to learn about. And that's an area that I started to geek out about. And we frankly work with a couple enterprise clients that are Snowflake shops, and we have some consultants that support them. So it's that's a really fascinating area for me. So you geek out about everything. What is your and this can be highly technical. You don't have to think broad strokes here. Give me like
Okay.
hey, this technology is freaking cool. And it does some pretty cool stuff. And it can be very specific and niche. It could also just be something broad that everybody would know of. But what's something that you're like, hey, this is pretty cool?
Man. I mean, I'm thinking Snowflake right now. It's so funny because you just said it, and that's probably what's got me going. But I'll say generically, data lakehouse, right? And what a data lakehouse can give you and enable insights and data for teams. And maybe every SaaS is able to pull from it, right? So Salesforce has got cool stuff around Einstein, and a lot of the different applications have different pieces that can enable it. So it sounds like an old story. We've been talking about data for 20 years, right? But the idea of the data lakehouse and how those are being built today and accessible to external entities or external needs outside of that application, I think is super cool.
Is
Yeah,
BI
yeah.
your front end? Do you guys use BI as your front end for that?
We use Power BI for some of our dashboards. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're piping the data lake to all sorts of different places. Salesforce, different wherever. We're trying to build an environment where we go to where the users are, not we expect the users to come to where we are, right? So our sales team mostly uses Salesforce. Our ops team mostly uses the ERP. So we're trying to deliver a lot of the data to where they are versus expect them to come to us,
Why is that?
because it creates a much better user experience for them. And it's seamless. I mean, we talk a lot about making things easier, whether it be making it easier for customers to work with us, or making it easier for partners to work with us, our suppliers, or making it easier for our employees. So this would be in the vein of making it easier for our employees.
It's interesting. So a big part of your data strategy is making technology easier and accessible for your
Absolutely.
users and employees.
Absolutely, 100%.
I feel like that's a totally different way of thinking about data too, because when like I think a casual, I'll use a sports analogy. When a casual fan thinks of data, they think about like forecasting and like user insights, and to think about like, I don't know, like analytics, like sports
Yep.
analytics is what comes to mind for me. But what you're talking about is like making that data, it makes applications useful and valuable. It's about like making what's already in the hands of your users more powerful to them. So I guess if you think about it from that standpoint, you're magnifying what's inside of your environment, and you're making it easier for people to see the value in it. And so anyway, I'm getting off on. I just think this stuff's fascinating. I
Yeah.
really do. So
Yeah. And
okay,
we're
so
still trying to give really powerful insights, right? We're looking to give really interesting insights to our sales team, right? To help them go after what they need to and not have to dig. The last thing we want to do, and one of the things that has happened a lot in this organization, is they're downloading spreadsheets, they're looking at it, they're digging, they're doing pivots, they're doing all this work to get to information. Our goal is for them not to have to do that work.
hmm, hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like I think it's really cool, and maybe this is normal in the tech CIO world, what you're trying to do, but it's a pretty fascinating way you're thinking about technology as like in fact, you've talked about this on panels before about viewing your tech shop as a product in a sense, like having
Mhm.
a product-based tech shop that can serve the business. But what you're describing is pretty fascinating to me. And now I'm just kind of stewing on it. It's how can we make how do we go to business leaders? I feel like I hear a lot of the inverse. I don't know, maybe in my and from other companies that I have worked with, of IT is like maybe the gatekeeper for things, I
Mm,
suppose, versus like you're going to people, to your business users, to your end users, and you're trying to make your technology valuable to them. So I don't know. I feel like that's just
yeah.
maybe
You
that's
know,
normal, but I don't know.
to our earlier point about career path and how careers progress, I was saying that I feel like it's a bit like Frogger, right? Where I'm waiting for that next lily pad to come along that I can jump on. One of them for me was in product. So I actually at Vantiv worked in their product organization and saw things from a different perspective, thinking about what is the product that you're delivering to your customer. And one of the things we learned about is called the job that needs to be done. So you're trying to understand the job that needs to be done by the person who's using this product. They use the example of lawnmowers, right? The job that needs to be done is cutting the grass, but you're also out in the hot sun, so you also need to hydrate. So lawnmowers that put cup holders on their lawnmowers, people will buy them more often because they realize they have to hydrate also. So another job that needs to be done while you're on the lawnmower is hydrate. And those are the kinds of examples, I mean, very simple example, but I think the exposure to product in my career gave me an interesting perspective. I really enjoyed that time and thinking about a product from when you introduce it to it becomes a cash cow, to it becomes something that you sunset and you move on. And these are evolutions that happen. IT services are the same. We have to understand the job that needs to be done by the user and what are they trying to do, and put ourselves in their seat. And not only look at that they need to cut the grass, but they also need to hydrate while they're cutting the grass. So they don't only need to put opportunities into Salesforce, but they also need to get data while they're in there and be told about things that are popping up that might relate. So I think the product perspective in my career was an interesting experience. I would encourage anybody in IT to study up on product.
That's great. This has been an awesome interview. So I've got all kinds of great notes here. But big adjectives: smart, humble, hungry, empathy, crucial to your leadership style. I'm hearing a whole lot of empowering your people, finding great people, bringing them into your ecosystem, people that have multiple different talents. It's also refreshing, I'll say this, to meet with the CIO that's also still a little bit of a geek. You know, I feel like I talk to so many of them that they're so out of the weeds now that it's not even interesting to them anymore. So it's fun to talk to somebody that still has like a passion or fire for tech, you know? So
Sure.
yeah, yeah. All right. Any final words, any words of wisdom you'd share? Anything you want to add to anything we've talked about?
I don't think so, Spencer. This was really fun. I didn't expect it to be as fun. So thank you for this. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Hang on, let me stop recording this.